This is a Fox News alert. The terrorist attacks in Paris are already impacting the 2016 election. On Saturday, the Democratic candidates faced off during their second debate and refused to use the term radical Islam. Really? Watch this.
I don't think we're at war with Islam. I don't think we're at war with all Muslims. I think we're at war with jihadists. We are not at war with Islam or Muslims. We are at war with violent extremism. We are at war with people who use their religion for purposes of power and oppression. And yes, we are at war with those people, but I don't want us to be painting with too broad a brush.
This brutal and barbaric group is perverting the name of a great world religion.
I don't think the term is what's important. What is important to understand is we have organizations, whether it is ISIS or Al-Qaeda, who do believe we should go back several thousand years.
Joining us now, the author of A More Perfect Union, What the People Can Do to Reclaim Our Constitutional Liberties, 2016 Republican presidential candidate, Dr. Benjamin Carson. Like the president, Dr. Carson, they cannot utter the words radical Islamic terrorism. Bernie Sanders, I'll play it for you, going as far as to say that climate change is our biggest national security threat. Watch this.
Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism. And if we do not get our act together and listen to what the scientists say, you're going to see countries all over the world. This is what the CIA says. They're going to be struggling over limited amounts of water, limited amounts of land to grow their crops, and you're going to see all kinds of international conflict.
Dr. Carson, how can the president and these top candidates be so wrong about such a clear and present danger to our country and to the world?
Well, you know, I hope the people are paying attention to this. You know, I find it interesting that, you know, they're willing to use the term ISIS because the I in ISIS is Islamic. And so they're not really being very consistent. But obviously, the terrorism that's growing and spreading around the world is coming from that base. And you really have to understand the history of it. You know, Muhammad, who lived in Mecca, he wasn't a very popular fellow, by the way. His uncle kind of shielded him. When his uncle died, they drove him out, and he went up to Medina, and that's where he put together his army. And they went around, and they killed people who didn't believe as they did. Anybody who didn't accept all of their tenets belonged to something they call the kafir. And you could do anything to them. You could kill them, behead them, you could lie to them. And that underlying belief is still there with the radical element of the Islamic movement. Now, what we need to do, I think, is encourage the imams and the clerics to come out and condemn the radical elements of that faith.
Do you think, the more moderate elements in Islam have been too silent in the face of all of these terror attacks, cumulatively speaking?
Well, you know, I grew up in Detroit. You know, I've always known a lot of people in the Muslim community, and many of them are patriotic, you know, wonderful people who don't believe that radical stuff. Yeah. But somebody needs to come out and make that distinction, because we need to have a way of being able to tell who are friends and who our friends are not.
Let me ask you this,
and we've got to become responsible.
Yeah, there was some negative press against you today because of your appearance on Fox News Sunday and your plan that you were articulating to defeat ISIS, and that you didn't name one foreign leader or country that would collaborate and form a coalition. I want to give you another chance to answer that and answer your critics that say you should have had a specific plan and who the specific countries would be.
Well, you know, I can name all the countries down there consecutively where they are. That's not the point. You know, the point is we need to have a plan that attracts them and lets them know that we will be with them, that we're not going to abandon them, you know, like we abandoned Israel, like we abandoned Ukraine, like we abandoned people around the world. That was my point. You know, I can sit here and I can say, well, yeah, it would be Saudi Arabia, yeah, it would be the United Arab Emirates, it would be Oman. That doesn't mean anything. You know, people need to ask relevant questions.
Yeah. Is it right for these states to say to the president, we're not taking these Syrian refugees, even though he's pushing them on us, even though his own intelligence agencies are warning them that we can't possibly vet them all, and that ISIS will infiltrate the refugee population?
Of course they will infiltrate it. You know, as I've said, it would be malpractice on their behalf not to infiltrate it. You have a wonderful vehicle allowing you to get these radical elements right into the midst of America. Of course they're going to do that. And at some point, we have to use something called common sense. And I think that's one of the things that the American people are so frustrated by. We have these politicians, and they seem to have completely lost contact with rational thought processing.
This president's lost touch with reality in so many ways. It's kind of scary. Dr. Carson, good to see you. Thank you.
You too. Thanks, John.